No, no! No! Are you listening?
Yep, it's time for another Lorne video, and today I think it's going to be interesting. You'll have to forgive me. I try really hard in the morning to alleviate the road noise, but sometimes it's difficult. If you made it through that video last night, mega props. I was so exhausted. I am really tired. I apologize. I know it drug in some places, but I was trying to get my point out. I've got another longer video coming out this week, and I hope you like that too. I know I am one of the worst at getting back to comments. I do know that. But the fact of the matter is, she can't come up and see me because it was part of a game. If you watched the game video, I could have added a bunch to it, but I just wanted to make something in Monday morning so you could get up and hear about this moron and realize your week isn't that bad. I sincerely wish I could have talked to Lorne before prison. I think we may have seen a little bit more of who he was when he talked to Chris Hansen and he started crying, he backed down, and he looked like the defeated little kid. But it wasn't until after prison that we really saw the psycho Lorne. Now, we did see him, why are you rushing on some of the decoy calls. Well, we didn't get any rage. I really thought we would. It was 30 days. 30 days, and Lorne usually goes to rage within a week. That being said, she was a 13-year-old he was grooming, and that's not a grooming tactic. At least not for most groomers. Because honestly, if she was putting up resistance, he could have gone straight to anger. He could have. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the Lorne before prison and after prison. The Lorne before prison, we know about his family problems. We know about him getting catfished. We don't know how he spoke to those catfish, but I'm going to tell you, I believe it was probably more sappy, more Hallmark, and less rage. Something happened in prison, and I think it took his power away. I know that's kind of cliche, but I think that is probably what happened. He's 5'6" tall in heels. He's also very small in stature, unless you count his gigantic head and his biceps, that it looks like that's the only piece of him that he worked out in prison, and his beer gut. Now, I will say this, the Lorne in those videos, he does have a better shape to his body, but not desirable. I would never want to look like him, and those weird looking eyes. I can't imagine that he didn't get mercilessly made fun of in prison. Picked on. I don't know if he got in fights, but he never talks about that time in prison very much. I have questions. I have questions that could be answered when he was about 40 sheets to the wind and might finally open up. I don't want to get too much into it, but I have my suspicions. But I understand that someone like Lorne, easily picked on, someone like Lorne who would drive people crazy, he'd be isolated. I don't even know, honestly, if they would bother beating him up. I can't imagine any gang would want him in their ranks. Although he says, when I went to prison, I started handling everybody. I told Ramona, everybody's scared of me. Lorne, and as Ramona said, Lorne, nobody was scared of you. And she knows. When you're 5'6", and you're not a very imposing figure, you don't present a very imposing figure, you're not going to be running the prison, which is what I'm sure he would like everybody to think. When he started dealing with Ramona, you saw that power trip, that rage. You better be calling me back today. You got a lot of explaining to do. All those psycho voicemails. Even the phone calls in general, where he's just screaming and bullying her and picking on her. I just picture Lorne going into his cell and his bunkmate going, yo, you got the top bunk, I got the bottom, or I got the top, you got the bottom, depending on how paranoid they are. For safety reasons, you want the top bunk. You don't want to be on the bottom bunk where they can get access to you. When Lorne walked in, much like Kevin Molesterback, much like Kevin Molesterback, they probably saw a fish. Not a big fish, but a guppy. Eyes wide, probably took his commissary. I know I reference him, but Shin's Koala is a very reliable source of legal information when it comes to his analysis, and he said that Lorne most likely would have been put in a segregated area where they put sex offenders and other easy targets. Lorne claims he was in General Pop, and that very well may be true. And maybe I misunderstood what Shins was saying, but I do know that he mentioned that a lot of times, or in Lorne's case, they most likely would have done it. He is such an easy target. And someone could have easily taken his power away, made him their bitch, which is why, with all these catfish women, he does the same thing. Almost every single one of them, he tries to exert his power. No. He likes to hang up and have them call him back. He really enjoys holding things over people's head. I'm sure Lorne was told, if you don't give me your commissary, you're going to get this. Maybe because his mom, she didn't really write him. There were a lot of letters unanswered from the research I did. And that says a lot. Alone, isolated in prison, with no one that truly cares about him. I'm not sure how much money was put on his calling cards. I know that if he got his mom on the phone, he would want to talk for hours, and I know she does not want to do that, especially with him, and the embarrassment his family would have felt and his friends. No one wanted to probably call him and stay on the phone for more than 5 minutes to ask, hey, Lorne, are you okay? Because that is what I assume normally happens when someone is in prison. But that's just me. I've never been in prison. I had a friend that was in prison, and they relished every moment that you called, every letter you sent, everything that you did that showed them that you cared about them. Maybe that's why Lorne screams so much about, I thought you cared about me. And the way he says me. Because it's never been about him. He makes everything about him, but it's never been about him. And that's the difference between Lorne. He makes everything about him, but it's not about him. Where most people that I know who tried to make things about them broke people down to the point where it became about them. Think of all the drama that happened. Think of Rhoda's funeral, how he made that about him. In prison, nothing was about him. He was nothing but another number, and that might explain some of that behavior. This would also explain why he doesn't think people being in the hospital or anything negative happening to people is about them. Because he couldn't make his prison stint about him. The way he bullies Roy, and he talked about how he bullied Tony Farmer when he came out of prison and how violent he was. Debbie talked about how he had misplaced anger. So I don't think he had that misplaced anger before. I think he may have been quick-tempered. We talk about him being bipolar, untreated. Jesus Christ, man, that's enough to drive a family crazy. I know my mom struggled with it. I know my dad struggled with mine. I know my ex-wife struggled with mine. My sister, geez, man, she was the recipient of some of my anger. It's really bad when you're a teenager because things spiral out of control. Maybe that's why Lorne didn't have any girlfriends. Maybe he was too much for them to handle. I don't know. But what I'm saying is the Lorne who went into prison is definitely not the same that came out. Those are just my thoughts. I have another long video on hemophilia and how it applies to him. I've just got to get it out later this week. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I know I'm not the best. I am trying to get better. Please like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah,